Hello, friends. Welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results. Today's podcast is all about decision making. So many people ask me for advice in a situation, and I'm not big on giving advice. Number one, because I never know your situation as well as you do, and there's so many variables, and you have so much more information than I do. So I really hesitate to actually just give advice in any situation. So what I wanted to do was to do a podcast on how to make those difficult decisions yourself. Because let's face it, if they're not a difficult decision, you're not struggling with making it, right? If there's an easy and clear choice in whatever situation you're facing, you don't really have to wrestle with that or struggle with that too much. Where we run into problems is when sometimes both choices aren't great. Maybe there's just not like a clear winner, and maybe they look pretty close to being neither one of them is going to have the best outcome, and yet you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. And so then you struggle with which one is the best one. There's not a clear winner. Maybe there's a downside to either choice. And so I wanted to talk through that because I know a lot of us face decisions, as women, as leaders, as working professionals, just as parents, even sometimes we don't know what's the right thing to do. And so I wanted to just kind of share some insight and a couple of points on that would maybe help guide you through some of those difficult decisions. And, like any of my podcast episodes, there's not just one way, right? There's not just one way to make a decision. This just happens to be the way that helps me. And so I wanted to share that with you. But what's so funny, if you just Google decision making, you can come up with some 400 million hits on Google on how to make a decision. And you'll find things like 7 steps to decision making, and there are 3 types of decision making, and all of that. And honestly, I think that's just way too complicated. I think that's way too complicated. So I like to keep things simple, because I think if it's simple, it's easier for us to understand it, and it's easier for us to apply it. So I wanted to break down kind of my process or my thoughts in just 3 key points here. But it really just boils down to one, and you'll see why in just a minute. So, back in 2015, Mac and I had both, stepped away from our respective careers, cashed in our 401k, and, we had really invested in ourselves and personal growth, and invested in our business and developing leadership, speaking business, and writing books and that kind of thing. And we were probably 2 years, maybe a little more than 2 years into our journey in 2015. And we had really, we struggled. And if you've listened to some of my podcasts or read some of our books, we invested everything. We sacrificed a lot of things, and we struggled the first couple of years because we had no clue. Probably like a lot of entrepreneurs, we had absolutely no clue, and we didn't know what we didn't know when it came to building a business on teaching and speaking on leadership. We didn't have a network. We didn't even really have social media network, and we didn't have podcasts, we didn't have books, and so we really were learning and growing. And in 2015, we were still in that season of really learning and growing and how to be successful in that. And I remember it was June of that year, and we really had come to a realization that if we were going to continue this path and this journey, that number one, we needed to be in a bigger city, and number two, we needed to be closer to like a major airport, because we knew a lot of travel was coming, and we knew that for every hour you live further away from a major airport, that's one less hour of your life that you have, and less energy that you can dedicate to what you want to do. And it was it was a difficult decision for us in so many ways. But part of it was, at that point we'd pretty much sacrificed almost everything. We quit having a regular salary, and certainly after I left the hospital world and I cashed in my 401k, and we'd sold our cars and we drastically downsized our lifestyle, and that was okay. Those were sacrifices that we were very glad to be able to make because we believed and still believe so wholeheartedly in what we were doing. But, when we bought the house that we were living in at the time, I thought I would retire in that house, and it really was a place of security, I think, and a place of rest for us, for a lot of different reasons. And I think for a lot of people too, having a home that you buy with the expectation of retiring and living out your life in, it almost feels like a little bit of security. And in June of 2015, we realized that living in a smaller town was holding us back from growing the business. It was holding us back from reaching a bigger geographical area. It was holding us back in a lot of different ways. And that, that's a difficult decision. When we come to that point, we realize that if we wanted to stay there, it would mean that we weren't wholeheartedly into this leadership journey, right? And kind of the upside of that is realizing that if you are wholeheartedly on that journey, you do have to make some sacrifices. And I say that's an upside because it's kind of at those defining moments that you really figure out how serious you are, right? A lot of us want to set goals and have dreams and visions. We want to write a book or start a business or go back to school and get an MBA. Whatever our goal is, we like to dream about that. And it's satisfying to set goals, but it's only when the going gets tough that you find out how committed you are, right? Because you can set little goals and those don't require a lot of commitment, but the bigger goals always require more sacrifice. And in June of 2015, we'd already sacrificed a lot of our certainly our leisure time, because we were always investing in ourselves and trying to grow our business. And so we were working harder than ever and trying to grow ourselves. And we, sold our cars and downsized. And there were some ramen noodle months, as we learned to grow through that season. And, here we were faced with another, I would say it's a defining moment, because in that instance, for me, certainly, and Mac would probably tell you the same, but, during that moment, those defining moments, we find out our level of commitment to something. Whatever we're passionate about, it's easy to say you're passionate about something, but, if you look up the meaning of the word passion, it really comes down to, to suffering for something. And when you are passionate about it, there are going to be sacrifices. There is going to be some suffering for it. Now, you don't mind it because you are passionate about it. But make no mistake, when you get passionate about something, it is going to cause you to sacrifice something else. That's the beauty of it. But that's also the other face of it, is there are sacrifices. So 3 things when it comes to facing those difficult decisions and defining moments, because they do define you, right? If Mac and I had chosen in 2015 not to move from the small town we were living in, not to sell up our house and move to an apartment, it would have been a defining moment, because it would have, number one, we would have always known that we were not completely committed to our journey of building this business and speaking and teaching on leadership, right? Because what we won't sacrifice controls us in a lot of ways. And so it definitely would have defined our journey differently. I guarantee you we would not be in the same place that we are today with regard to traveling all over the United States and speaking, because there's no doubt that decision, as tough as it was, and we did decide to sell the house and put it up for sale and and move to a bigger city. We moved to near Atlanta, got leased an apartment, and let me just tell you, we are not apartment people. And we figured that out really quickly. I'd never lived in an apartment before, and we had a family with, I think, 5 kids living above us. And of course, with what we do, we both have home offices, and we are home a lot if we're not out speaking and traveling. And, the kids running around overhead were just, they're just being kids. They certainly didn't mean to interfere with our book writing or anything like that. But it's definitely distracting when you have what sounds like a small herd of elephants thumping above your head as you're trying to do things like record podcasts and write books. And it was just a totally different environment from what we had been used to, having our own house and having, in that house we both had our own offices, and we had a spare bedroom, so we had more space, and of course we had a pool, and so we totally had to shift our environment when we moved to that apartment. Nothing wrong with the apartment. It was very nice, and we were very blessed to have it, but it drastically challenged us. And we consider that one of our sacrifices in selling our house and moving. But it was a defining moment. There's no doubt that move accelerated us. I think for me, it eliminated some distractions. It forced me to get outside my comfort zone. I tell people, I don't know how people would move to a new city back before there was GPS. I think I would have gotten lost 8,000 times when we moved to a bigger city, because, I'd been living in that small town for so long, we used to live in Auburn. And I knew all the streets and the roads. I didn't have to think about it. But when we moved here, everything took more energy. So it definitely defined our journey differently. And that's the thing about decisions like that, right? The little decisions don't challenge us. It's the big decisions, because regardless of whether there is or isn't a very clear choice, they're going to have different outcomes. And a lot of times we're afraid of those outcomes. Okay, so here we go. I think I said this already, but 3 things when it comes to difficult decisions. Number 1, don't get your advice from Facebook. I don't care if you are thinking about a career change, or whether you should have kids, or who you should marry, or whether you should start your own business. Don't get on Facebook or Instagram or social media and ask your social world for advice. And here's why. It's not that they don't care about you, but you want to get advice from people who have traveled the journey you want to travel, right? Don't just ask everybody in the world for input or feedback on a big decision in your life, because guess what? It's your life, and nobody else cares about it as much as you do. Nobody. Your mom doesn't care as much as you do. Your next door neighbor doesn't care as much as you do. They care, absolutely, if they care about you, but they don't care as much as you do, because it's your life. So don't jump on social and say, hey, should I do this or this, right? If it's a big decision, you absolutely can and should perhaps seek advice from a trusted mentor, someone who's traveled the journey that you want to travel, someone who's done what you want to do successful,ly right? Because we can learn from that. There's nothing wrong with that. But be careful who you ask for advice, right? Because people aren't as invested in your goals and dreams. And a lot of time, what makes sense for you doesn't appear to be the best decision in other people's eyes. And, I guarantee you there are people, if in June of 2015, when Mac and I were thinking about selling our house and moving to a small apartment, I guarantee you there are people who thought we were crazy. There are people who probably already thought we were crazy for, leaving a steady and secure job and a secure salary and jumping off into a world of becoming a speaker and author. I guarantee you there were friends who thought we were crazy or that we wouldn't be successful. And so if we had asked those people for advice, they would have told us not to do it, right? Because they didn't have the same dreams and goals and passion that we did. So don't get your advice from Facebook. Absolutely. Look around for a trusted mentor. Get a book from someone who's walked your path. If that's the only source of good advice you can find, then learn from those minds. There's so much information out there. We have the ability in this day and age to learn from the best of people in any of our fields, right? Learn from those people and then build on that. Number 2, don't wait too long. Don't wait too long. The problem with difficult decisions is that sometimes we don't see a clear outcome, and so we just put off making any choice at all. And we put it off and we put it off. And really, in putting it off and not making a decision is a decision in and of itself, right? We're just deciding not to take action. And most of the time, that gets us in a worse situation than either decision. I heard several years ago, I heard someone share a really good decision-making question. And this is what I meant when I said earlier about there's not really 3 steps to decision-making. There's just one. Here's the one. Ask yourself this question. Will what I'm about to do move me in the right direction? Is this path going to move me forward, right? And so like in June of 2012, when Mac and I were talking about selling our house, all we had to do was say, is selling our house and moving to at least an apartment going to move us in the right direction relative to our goal of building this leadership speaking and teaching business? And the answer was yes. It was yes. Ask yourself that question. Whatever decision you're considering, is what I'm about to do going to move me forward? Now, that question means you've got to know where you are and where you're going. Yes. But I think you probably already know those things, or you wouldn't be struggling with a decision about how to get there. Is what I'm going to do going to move me forward? And if the answer is no, don't do it. That might seem like I shouldn't have to say that, but how many times do we know something would help us move forward and we still don't want to do it, right? And that brings us to number 3. Don't delay action. Right? Don't delay action. Making the decision is the easy part. Carrying through on it is where the difficulty lies. And a lot of times I would say that we often kind of know what decision is the right one, but we don't like doing it. Right? Maybe we don't want to do it because there are going to be some downsides to it. Or maybe we don't like doing it because it's going to take time and energy. And most of us are impatient. Right? But a lot of times our intuition, gut feeling, if you want to call it that, a lot of times we pretty much know what would help us move forward, but we don't always want to do it, and that's an entirely separate podcast. We could talk a whole hour on how to overcome that. I don't want to, but I'll give you a tip here. When it comes to taking action on something, most of it, especially if it's something that we really don't want to do, right? That's the discipline part. But when it comes down to that, we have to dislike the problem or the current state more than we dislike the solution. And so what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. And there's not any secret to losing weight. If I need to lose 10 pounds, I need to exercise more and or eat less, right? Or eat better. But I don't necessarily want to do that, right? I might know if my goal is to lose 10 pounds, I should not eat those donuts in the office break room, right? Yeah, we already know that. But I have to dislike the current state more than I dislike the solution. So I have to dislike the state of feeling like I need to lose 10 pounds more than I like the solution of eating a salad for lunch instead of a yummy slice of pecan pie and a giant bowl of macaroni and cheese or whatever it is that you enjoy. Right? I have to dislike the problem more than I dislike the solution. Because if the solution is exercise more and eat better. I don't necessarily like to eat better or exercise more, but I've got to dislike the problem more. And so sometimes just thinking about why am I carrying through on this action or this decision? What's it going to get me, right? Think of some of the benefits, and those absolutely can help you keep that front and center in your mind, and that's helpful in driving behavior. But don't delay action too long, right? The law of diminishing intent says the longer we wait to do something that we know we should take action on, the less likely we are to do it. The longer we wait to do something, it sounds really, really good when you hear this podcast and you're like, man, I need to take action on this. And it's going to sound a little less good by Friday. And by Monday, you will forget all about it unless you take action. So don't wait. Don't wait. I once heard John Maxwell speak at one of the sessions I attended of his leadership trainings. And he talks about, he went through a season of learning to take action and how he drives himself to take action. He says, you know what, I focused on 3 words: do it now, do it now. He said, I would wake up in the morning going, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. He said, I'd go through the day, do it now, do it now, do it now. I'd go to bed thinking, do it now, do it now, do it now. Right? And he said, and that almost created a sense of urgency to just, when I know I can take action, I need to do it right now. Do it now, do it now. Don't wait. Because the longer we wait, the easier it is to put it off and put it off and put it off. And we are so good. We are masters. I know I am. I am a master at creating excuses for why I don't want to do something or shouldn't do something. I can remember when I was in grad school and I was having to write, essays, and we had some pretty long, they called them directed studies, but it was like a 20-page opinion paper that it would give you like 5 questions and you'd have to write almost an op-ed on it. And I didn't like doing those things. They didn't really interest me most of the time. But you had to do it. That was worth a full credit hour, or maybe 2 or 3. And I would sit down to do my essay or my directed study, and then I would suddenly become very interested in doing laundry. Now, I don't even like to do laundry, but laundry was more exciting than schoolwork. And so I would think of reasons to put off the schoolwork. Oh, I need to get up and fold those clothes. Oh, let me go. I need to mop the floor, right? We are masters at creating excuses for why we shouldn't do something right now. Just do it. Because the longer you wait, the less likely we are to do it. So don't wait. Just go. And honestly, I talked about in last week's episode on willpower, right? Tackle your big, most important things first. So do it now, do it now, do it now. Don't delay action. Once you've made a decision, you already know what to do. Now you just have to do it, right? I know it's easy to make that decision, and doing it is the hard part. Wanted to leave you with just a couple quotes here. Michael Marks said, "Decision-making and problem-solving are not the same. To solve a problem, one needs to find a solution. To make a decision, one needs to make a choice." And Izzy Odiais said, "Always make decisions that prioritize your inner peace." Right? A lot of times there might not be a very clear answer, but when you think about it, is this going to take me forward to where I want to go? That's going to bring you peace. You may not like all of the consequences, because see, we always are free to make our choices. We just don't always get to choose the consequences. But weigh the consequences, write them down if you have to. But just ask yourself, is what I'm about to do going to move me in the right direction? Is this going to bring me peace? Is this going to take me where I want to go? Right? And then the answer should be pretty clear. Until next time. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode on decision making. If you did, and if you got some valuable information or some nuggets or even just one tip that you can use to apply to your own situation in decision making at home, at work, in your life, do your friends and family a favor. Screenshot it, post it on social, and share it with those around you. Because if you found something valuable in here, go on and share it with others because, the thing is, we want to be a river. When it comes to learning and growing, we want to help others learn and grow right along with us. Until next time.